Hello, I'm Kira for Shakti Power Yoga. Today we're not going to do a physical practice of yoga, so I'm sorry if you were looking for that. Definitely tune back in next Thursday. I do post physical asana practices every Thursday, 9 out of 10 times. The other times, videos like this, Yogi's Book Club. So today we are going to look at anatomy books, which is an interesting caveat of yoga reading, yoga literature, just because yoga is such a spiritual practice that in literature, the physical practice is often overlooked, but how do we get guidance right on our mats? So that's where this comes in. If you have a scientific mind, if you're interested in being really structurally perfect in these poses, this is for you. These books are only looking at asana, which is the physical postures of yoga, and then pranayama, which is breath work, but has physical dimensions in your lungs and your respiratory system. So we're going to start with the easier of the two to comprehend, just for general yoga students that don't have a science or anatomy background. This one's called The Key Poses of Yoga. It's by Ray Long. He is a PhD, so he's a yoga practitioner. He's really interested in the subject, but he also has a background to be professional when talking about this stuff. So he made this beautiful book. It's 4-color, 3-dimensional, beautiful images. It goes through an introduction to sports medicine, to understanding muscles, tendons, ligaments, the central nervous system, talking about how our muscles are told to contract and relax and how we can autonomously try to control that system. So the intro is amazing if you have no background in bio and just kind of need an introduction. And then he basically takes the whole book and dedicates a 2-page huge spread to each pose. And each pose is given this 4-color beautiful diagrams. So the light pink color means that it's a mild stretch. The dark red color is a large stretch. It's like stretching to its maximum. The light blue is a minor contraction. And then the dark blue is majorly contracted. So it's just such a beautiful book, regardless of your background. If you know anatomy, this is just cool to see it applied to yoga in a new way. So you can see these poses are actually so beautiful. These pictures, these illustrations, amazing to bring into your own practice and also to use as a tool when you're trying to explain to students, if you're teaching or just telling your friends about it, to use as a tool and say like, okay, this is structurally what you have to be thinking about. Because sometimes in a class when you're just looking at someone else do it, it's hard to capture what you're doing wrong because from the outside, everything looks the same. But here you can see really what muscles you're supposed to be feeling with everything. And the appendices are also a great resource. This just goes through just a basics of all your anatomy that you'll need as a yoga teacher. It's going to group things together like your quadriceps, your hamstrings. It's not going to go through all the muscles in your feet and in your neck, but it's going to give you the big muscle groups of your body. So that's really good. There's no negatives in this book for me. It's an amazing resource. It went through every pose I wanted it to. And it really just brought some more structure to my physical practice and brought a better understanding for when I'm trying, like I said, to describe my practice to others. So amazing. This book would be a fun little read, even if you knew anatomy, just to see these pictures, like I said. And then this is Anatomy of Hatha Yoga. It's a little bit more in depth. Obviously, it's a lot thicker and a lot less pictures. So this book I think is an amazing resource, but I am going to recommend it only if you have a science or engineering or aptitude for science, that kind of background, just because it is so dense. But it's just an amazing resource, and it's definitely super, super thorough. It's like reading a scientific paper on yoga, like 50 of them in a row. The author, David Coulter, he's a doctor. He's a yoga practitioner of 30 years. So he is really knowledgeable and just wants to communicate that knowledge. So my background's chemical engineering. In yoga poses, you can often, like I said, be doing something that looks exactly like the person next to you, and you're not stretching the right areas. Just something's a little bit off, the angles are a little bit off. And for me, I don't like seeing that. I don't like not knowing because of my engineering background. So I really enjoyed this book because it gets very, very specific about every single thing, every single pranayama practice, every single asana practice. It goes through exactly what angle each part of your body should be at in terms of ranges, saying that someone flexible might be 110-degree angle in the hips, and someone not flexible will only be 70, and this is how that's going to affect the lumbar curve. And so it really goes through all those specific angles, which I absolutely loved seeing. And then also, like I said, with that 110 to 70-degree range in hips, something like that, it goes through different levels of flexibility. So it's going to say, this is what the ideal perfect yogi is going to look like. This is how their body's structured. Okay, now let's look at someone just starting yoga or someone inflexible and see how that affects their body in different ways. Like, are you putting more pressure on your head, your neck, your lumbar spine, everything like that. So I have a picture to show you. So this is the perfect forward fold. And as you can see, that angle in that hips is really severe. And you'll definitely, like in yoga classes, y'all know some people look like that. And then some people look like this. So I just loved seeing not only modifications, but just differences of flexibility and strength in the poses. Like I said, it's a little bit hard to read. It's long, so it's going to take you a long time to get through, but it's also just a little bit hard to read if you don't have an anatomy background. I don't, but I do like science and math, and I've always been strong in those areas, so I didn't find it unbearable. I really enjoyed the whole book, even if there were like little paragraphs here and there where I'm like, you kind of lost me. I'll just keep reading. So I think it's good, even if you're not super confident, you can understand every little thing. Like, that's fine if you don't. You can still get something out of it by reading through and not retaining everything. But it is a book where you kind of I highlighted so much of this book. It's crazy. So it's definitely a book that you need a highlighter with, probably a notepad too. It's dense and it has so much information. So I do highly recommend this book. This book I recommend to the engineering, the math, the science minds, the people that want perfect knowledge of the subject of physical asana practice. And then this book I recommend for all practicing yogis because it's just going to better your practice and make you more knowledgeable without getting so in depth that it's like taking away from the natural beauty of the class, of the practice, like this might feel for some people. So 2 amazing books. They're linked in the description below. Let me know what you think. If you've read these books, how difficult were they for you to grasp, to understand? Do you have other anatomy books that would be useful for students as well? I'd love to read a new book, so let me know down below. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste.